Elizabeth and Jennifer were two teenage girls, aged 14 and 15. Only a year apart, they were very close friends and attended the same high school, Waltrip High School in Texas. Although the girls were just over 1 year in age difference, both sets of their parents approved of their friendship. The girls had just started experimenting with makeup and doing their hair. At 4:15 on June the 24th, 1993, Jennifer's father, Randy, drove his daughter over to Elizabeth's home at approximately 8 p.m. Elizabeth's mother, Melissa, drove the two girls to the home of their friend Gina so all three girls could have some fun. She lived in Spring Hill Apartments and she was hosting a pool party for her school friends. It was the holidays, and as both girls exited the car, Elizabeth assured her mother she and her friend would be home at the agreed time, 11:30 p.m. When the pair realized they were going to be running a bit late, they decided to leave the party to conform to the curfew that both parents set for them. Jen and Elizabeth decided to take a 10-minute shortcut to Elizabeth's residence in Oak Forest. This was by the railroad tracks and passing through T.J. Jester Park. This location was approximately 1 mile from Elizabeth's home. But concerns grew by the evening as the two did not arrive home, and the worried parents of both teenagers contacted each other and asked, "Have you seen them?" Elizabeth's parents and Jennifer's parents both agreed that they had not seen their daughters and became concerned. They were good girls. If they were going to be home by a certain time, they would have been. So when they didn't arrive back in time or even 10 minutes late, they knew something was wrong. The worried parents contacted the Houston Police Department, and at that time law enforcement was so overwhelmed with hundreds of homicides in the Houston area, they delayed a search for Jen and Elizabeth. Now, relatives and friends frantically searched for Jen and Elizabeth without the aid of law enforcement, but things took a sharp turn left on June the 28th, 1993, just 4 days after the two had vanished. An anonymous male called Crime Stoppers and told them where they could find the girls' bodies. So long as the call went to Crime Stoppers, the caller could remain anonymous. But when investigators began searching the wrong area, the caller phoned the police to amend his information, and ultimately his identity was then revealed. The tipster's information proved accurate, and authorities found the two girls' bodies at T.C. Jester Park in a wooded area near the railroad tracks between where the birthday party took place and Elizabeth's home. Both the teenagers were partially nude. They were decomposed severely enough that they had to be identified by dental records, and the family were informed. They were absolutely devastated. At this point, they didn't know if these were their daughters, but they just knew deep down that they were. At the end of the day, how many teenage girls had gone missing together in that area, and they just knew. It was Elizabeth and Jen. Then the police noted clothes scattered all over the place, and then they saw a belt that was red. Half of it wasn't there. Police soon turned their attention to the once anonymous informant who transpired to be a Houston Heights resident named Joe Cantu. He and his wife were apparently at home watching TV when his living 18-year-old brother, Peter Cantu, had come home with a group of male friends on the night that Jennifer and Elizabeth had disappeared. These boys had apparently went to their home right after committing the crimes and were bragging, like teenage boys do, wanting to show off. They also were in possession of jewelry that belonged to the girls. The group had apparently laughed when retelling how the gang had raped and strangled the girls. The group included Peter Cantu, described as the ringleader of the group, was a self-styled black and white gang. Jose Medellin, 18, Jose's brother, Vanico, who was 14, Efrain, 17, Derek Sean O'Brien, 18, and Raul, who was apparently 17. Now, the group had apparently been initiating one of the gang members on the night of the murders, which included physical beating and name-calling. It was then that apparently Elizabeth and Jennifer had walked by while they were on their way home. Now, law enforcement arrived at the suspects' homes, as they now had names, and they simultaneously, on June the 29th, squashing any opportunity for them to be alerted by one another. The houses were just walking distance from the crime scene. Police located a torn red belt matching the partial one they'd found near the bodies. Peter Cantu, Jose Medellin, Perez O'Brien, and this Villarreal were charged as adults with capital murder, while one of the boys that was 14 years of age was charged as a juvenile. Now, trying to get information about any kind of crime, much less a capital murder, from a gang member and asking them to talk on another gang member is pretty much impossible, because they know if they talk, they get labels for the rest of their lives, and what's more important to them than anything is how they're seen. The suspects confessed to taking turns raping the victims, and according to their collective and chilling statements, at one point, the 14-year-old helped hold one of the girls down while O'Brien strangled one of them with the red belt. After this, it broke, and the suspect resorted to a handkerchief and a shoelace. The girls had apparently been walking along when they encountered these 6 black and white gang members drinking beer shortly after holding this gang initiation ceremony on the 17-year-old Villarreal. He had not been a member of the gang or any gang, but had engaged in this initiation ceremony whereby he had been forced to fight several other gang members for 5 minutes successfully before they judged whether to accept him or not. But by 10:30 p.m, he had successfully fought these gang members before being beaten midway through his fight, and they were now drinking beer and chilling, with Peter Cantu approaching Villarreal and telling him, "You're in. Welcome to the gang. You're welcome to hang with us." They were relaxing, talking, trading insults, compliments, drinking beer, and shortly thereafter they held a beer aloft, proclaiming things were to be great. Within approximately 40 minutes of Villarreal accepting several bottles of beer from the other gang members and holding his first beer aloft, Jennifer and Elizabeth had passed the gang. One member, Jose, attempted to grope and pinch Elizabeth's breasts, but Elizabeth brushed aside his hand and continued walking. But in response, one of them stated, "No, baby, where you going?" He then clasped his arm around Elizabeth's neck, threw her to the ground, and dragged her down a gravel decline in the direction of the other gang members. And as Elizabeth screamed and pleaded for help, she was then forced to remove her underwear. Jennifer could have easily run to escape at this point, but ran to help her friend. She was thrown to the ground by gang members. Peter and Derek Sean O'Brien and other 5 members proceeded to RAP both of the girls for more than an hour repeatedly. Both girls were RAP'd and beaten by all of the gang members, with the exception of the 14-year-old, who had apparently been holding them down. According to trial testimony, both Elizabeth and Jennifer repeatedly glanced in the direction of one another several times throughout their ordeal, in likely gestures of concern and despair and trying to reassure each other, but both repeatedly struggled against their abusers, while Elizabeth, at least on one occasion, attempted to fight off her attacker by repeatedly kicking her legs, and Jennifer biting her attackers. And according to later testimony, on one occasion, Elizabeth glanced in the direction of her younger friend, and as she was RAP'd by this Efrain, and began weeping as she observed Jennifer Realising that the girls would be capable of identifying him at this point, Cantu ordered the members to kill the girls. The gang members were forced to take the girls into a wooded area. Both were strangled to death after being told, "Get on your knees, bitch." Leaving the crime scene, Cantu handed one of the other gang members a goofy wristwatch taken from Jennifer's body, saying, "Take this, I don't want it." 4 days after the murders, the girls' bodies were found in the park during hot weather conditions, and dental records were used for identification. Sentencing the offenders were remanded to the Texas Department of Criminal Justice. Some of the gang members testified against each other. One received a 40-year prison sentence, the maximum for a juvenile for the assault of Jennifer. Now, the Supreme Court of the United States had banned the executions of people who committed crimes while they were below 18 years of age, and the death sentences of Perez and Villarreal were automatically commuted to life in prison. Perez will be eligible for parole on October the 10th, 2029, while Villarreal will be eligible for parole on September the 20th, 2029. Some of the gang members were executed as they were over 18 at the time they committed the crime. The parents of Elizabeth and Jennifer successfully advocated for the state of Texas to allow victims' relatives to have permission to witness the executions. Before the murders, Houston officials had stated that gangs were not a significant issue in the city, and the family members wanted to watch. They'd taken their children's lives, and they wanted to watch their lives being taken. Another crazy case. 2 girls that just happened to be walking a different way home. A way home that they wouldn't normally walk, but in order to try and save a few minutes and get home on time, they thought it would be safe. They were together, there was 2 of them. But unfortunately, they were just in the wrong place at the wrong time. And it makes you wonder, if it hadn't have been Elizabeth and Jennifer, these boys obviously were up to no good. Would they have done this to somebody else the following day or the following week if they had not been arrested? Anyway, guys, thank you for listening. Take care, and I'll be back with you again soon. Bye for now.